Hana pressed her long, thin fingers against the communication panel one last time. The blue lights flickered weakly, and she knew their power would not last much longer. Outside the sealed bunker, she could hear the terrible sounds of her world dying. The Korthak swarm had come and nothing could stop them. Her people, the Rilani, had always been peaceful. They solved problems with words, not weapons. They built beautiful cities with tall white towers that reached toward the stars. They made art and music and tried to help other worlds find peace too. But peace meant nothing to the Korthak. The insect-like creatures had appeared 3 days ago. Their ships were dark and twisted like the shells of dead beetles. They did not want to talk. They did not want anything the Rilani could offer. They only wanted to eat everything alive on the planet. Hana's commander had tried to contact them. The wise old Rilani had spoken in 17 different languages, offering gifts, friendship, and knowledge. The Korthak response was simple. They killed him and kept moving forward. Now Hana was alone in the emergency communication center. Deep, underground, above her, the beautiful city of Velthara was burning. The Korthak moved through the streets like a wave of death, consuming everything in their path. The Rilani Defense Forces, trained only for peacekeeping, had lasted less than 6 hours. She activated the long-range transmitter with shaking hands. The message would go out to every star system within 1,000 light years. Someone had to help them. Someone had to care that an entire world was about to die. "This is Hana of Velthara," she spoke into the device. Her voice was steady, even, though her heart was breaking. "Our world is under attack by the Korthak swarm. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons to fight them. They will kill everyone if no one helps us. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help. We will share our knowledge, our resources, anything you want. Just please help us." She sent the message and waited. The first response came from the Zentari Federation within an hour. Hana felt hope rise in her chest until she heard their words. "We are sorry for your situation," the Zentari diplomat said in their calm, electronic voice. "However, the Korthak swarm is too dangerous. We cannot risk our ships or our people. We suggest you evacuate immediately." The next response came from the Vorthak Empire. "The Korthak are a force of nature," their message said. "No one can fight them and win. Save who you can and abandon your world." More messages came throughout the day. The hegemony of Ash expressed their sympathy, but said they were too far away to help. The Trade Federation offered to buy any Rilani survivors as workers, which made Hana sick to her stomach. The Crystal Collective sent philosophical thoughts about accepting death with grace. No one would help. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy knew about the Korthak, and every one of them was too afraid to fight. Hana began to lose hope. Maybe the others were right. Maybe the Korthak could not be stopped. Far away, on the edge of a small solar system that most maps marked as dangerous, a human named Tai Min sat at his monitoring station. He was young for his job, only 25, but he had good ears for signals from space. Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Service kept him busy listening for anything interesting in the void between stars. When Hana's message reached him, Tai Min almost fell out of his chair. An alien distress call. A real one, not some test or false alarm. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child. He recorded the message and sent it up the chain of command immediately. Within minutes, his supervisor was calling him. "Are you sure about this, Tai Min?" the older man asked. "Yes, sir. It's definitely alien. The language patterns, the transmission method, everything checks out. They're asking for help against something, called the Korthak swarm. I'll pass it up to command. Good work." The message reached Captain Sojin of the Earth Defense Corps ship Iron Phoenix within 3 hours. She was a small woman with hard eyes and scars on her hands from 20 years of military service. She had fought in the Europa Wars, the Mars Rebellion, and a dozen smaller conflicts that never made the history books. She read Hana's message twice, then called her senior staff to the briefing room. "We have a situation," she told them, playing the alien transmission. "A peaceful species is under attack by something called the Korthak swarm. They're asking for help." Her first officer, Lieutenant Commander Wu Jin, frowned. Captain, we don't know anything about these aliens or their enemies. This could be a trap. Could be, Sojin agreed. But listen to her voice. That's real fear, real desperation. Someone is dying out there, and they asked for help. What about orders from Earth Command? Asked Chief Medical Officer Mi Young. I sent the message up the chain. They're discussing it. So Jin stood up and walked to the star map on the wall. But I'm not waiting for politicians to decide if we should help people who are about to die. She turned back to her officers. I'm taking volunteers only. This mission could get us all killed. Earth Command might court-martial us for acting without orders. Any of you who want to transfer to another ship, I'll approve it with no questions asked. Not one person moved. All right then, Sojin said with a slight smile. Let's go answer a distress call. Back on Velthara, Hana had given up hope. The Korthak had broken through the last defense line. She could hear them in the tunnels above, their claws scratching against metal as they searched for survivors. Soon they would find her bunker. Then her communication system crackled to life. This is Captain Sojin of the Earth Defense Corps ship Iron Phoenix, a strange voice said. We received your distress call. We're coming to help. Hold on. Hana stared at the speaker in confusion. Earth? She had never heard of that world. But someone was coming. Someone had answered. Who are you? She transmitted back. What is Earth? There was a pause. We're humans, the voice said. From the third planet in the Sol system. Most people call our world Terra. Hana's blood turned cold. Terra, the death world, the planet of monsters that parents used to frighten their children. No civilized species went near Terra. The creatures that lived there were said to be violent beyond understanding, but they were the only ones who had answered her call. How long until you arrive? She asked, not sure if she was being rescued or doomed. 72 hours, Captain Sojin replied. Can you hold out that long? Hana looked at her failing power systems and listened to the Korthak getting closer. We'll try, she said. The Iron Phoenix cut through space at maximum speed, its engines burning bright blue in the darkness. Captain Sojin stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past. They had 3 days to reach Velthara, and she was pushing her ship harder than she had ever pushed it before. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were not fresh recruits or academy graduates. Every person on the Iron Phoenix had seen real combat. They knew what it meant when someone called for help. In the ship's mess hall, Sergeant Jin Woo sat with a group of Marines cleaning his rifle for the 3rd time that day. He was 42 years old, with gray hair and a face marked by too many battles. The younger soldiers looked to him for guidance, and he never let them down. Sarge, said Private Dongsu, a kid barely out of training, what do you think these Korthak things are like? Jin Woo looked up from his weapon. Does it matter? Someone is hurting innocent people, and we're going to stop them. That's all you need to know. But the aliens, Dongsu continued. The Rilani. They seemed scared when they learned we were human. Why would they be afraid of us? We're trying to help them. The older Marines exchanged glances. They all knew the answer, but it was not something they liked to think about. Tell him, Mi Young, Jin Woo said to the combat medic sitting across the table. Mi Young put down her medical kit and looked at the young Marine. She was 35, with kind eyes that had seen too much death. Most aliens think we're monsters, she said simply. That's crazy, Dongsu protested. We're the good guys. To us, yes, Mi Young agreed. But think about it from their perspective. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Most species can't even breathe our air without protection. Our gravity would crush half the galaxy's inhabitants. We have predators that can kill creatures twice their size. We survived ice ages, plagues, and thousands of years of constant war. She gestured around the mess hall. Every person on this ship is descended from survivors. Our ancestors fought saber-toothed tigers with stone spears. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They looked at the most dangerous places on Earth and decided to live there anyway. Duhyun, the ship's explosives expert, laughed from his corner table. Remember that trade delegation from Centauri Prime last year? The one that came to Earth? Several Marines nodded. It had been big news. Their leader took one look at a house cat and nearly fainted. Do-hyun continued. A house cat. He said it was the most efficient killer he had ever seen, and we keep them as pets. That's not the worst part, added communications specialist Yu Jin. I was monitoring their private channels. They were terrified of everything, the weather, the insects, the fact that we eat plants that would poison most species. One of them saw a documentary about sharks and asked how we managed to leave our oceans alive. Dongsu looked confused. But we're not trying to hurt anyone. We're trying to help. That's what makes it worse for them, Jinwoo explained. They think we're violent by nature, which we are. But they can't understand why we would use that violence to protect strangers. Most species in the galaxy look out for themselves first. The idea that we would risk our lives for people we've never met doesn't make sense to them. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement from the bridge. All senior staff to the briefing room. Captain Sojin's voice echoed through the ship. In the briefing room, Sojin stood in front of a holographic display showing the Velthara system. Senior officers filled the chairs around the table. I've been studying everything we know about the Korthak swarm, she began. It's not much, but it's enough to understand why everyone else is afraid of them. The hologram changed to show a dark, insect-like creature with multiple arms and razor-sharp claws. The Korthak are hive-minded predators. They don't negotiate, they don't retreat, and they don't leave survivors. They've consumed 12 worlds in the past 50 years. Every military force that has engaged them has been completely destroyed. Lieutenant Commander Wu Jin studied the image. What's their technology level? Advanced, Sojin replied. Energy weapons, personal shields, adaptive armor. But here's the interesting part, they've never fought a species like us. What do you mean? Asked Chief Engineer Jae-yoon. Every species they've encountered has been peaceful, civilized. When faced with the Korthak, these species try to negotiate or retreat. They fight according to rules of engagement, codes of honor, Geneva Conventions. The Korthak exploit that. Sojin changed the hologram to show battle footage from previous Korthak attacks. Look at this. The defending forces maintain formation, even as they're being overrun. They focus on minimizing civilian casualties instead of killing the enemy. They retreat in good order instead of fighting to the last man. Sounds like good military doctrine to me, Wu Jin observed. Against other civilized species, yes. But the Korthak aren't civilized, they're predators. Sojin's eyes were hard. They've never fought humans before. They've never faced an enemy that evolved from pack hunters, that treats war as just another kind of hunting. She turned to Jinwoo. Sergeant, how many wars has humanity fought in the last 1,000 years? Jinwoo didn't even have to think. All of them, Captain. If there was a fight somewhere, humans were in it. Exactly. We've been fighting continuously for our entire history, against each other, against our environment, against everything that tried to kill us. It made us very good at staying alive, and very good at making sure our enemies don't. The room was quiet as the implications sank in. The Rilani are afraid of us because they think we're monsters, Sojin continued. Maybe they're right, but sometimes you need monsters to fight monsters. Back in the communications center, Taimin was monitoring long-range transmissions. He had picked up chatter from several alien civilizations, all talking about the human ship heading to Velthara. The conversations were not encouraging. The death. Worlders are actually going to fight the Korthak, one transmission said. They must be even more insane than we thought. Another voice replied, perhaps this is good. The Korthak will destroy them, and then we won't have to worry about either threat. A third alien added, I almost feel sorry for the Rilani. They asked for help and got Terrans instead. They might have been better off with the Korthak. Taimin turned off the monitor in disgust. He had spent years learning alien languages and dreaming of peaceful first contact. Now he understood why Earth kept its location secret, and why most humans preferred to stay in their own solar system. But Captain Sojin was right about one thing. If the galaxy's peaceful species couldn't or wouldn't help the Rilani, then it was up to the monsters from Earth to save them. In her bunker on Velthara, Hana listened to the sounds of destruction above. The Korthak had found the main city and were systematically destroying everything. She had managed to evacuate a few hundred civilians to the deep shelters, but millions more were trapped on the surface. She tried not to think about the humans coming to help them. Everyone knew the stories about Terra. It was a world where everything was trying to kill everything else. The creatures that lived there were violent, unpredictable, and dangerous beyond measure. But they were the only ones who had answered her call. The communication system crackled. "Velthara, this is the Iron Phoenix. We're still 2 days out. How are you holding?" "The Korthak control most of the surface," Hana replied. "We have maybe 1,000 survivors in underground shelters. Food and power are running low." "Understood. We're coming as fast as we can. Try to stay hidden until we arrive." "Captain Sojin," Hana said quietly. "Why did you come?" Everyone else was too afraid. There was a long pause before the human answered. "Because you asked for help," Sojin said simply. Hana didn't understand. In her experience, species helped each other only when there was something to gain. But the humans were risking their lives for strangers who couldn't offer them anything. In return, maybe the monsters from the Deathworld were not what she expected. Maybe they were exactly what her people needed. The Iron Phoenix dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velthara system, and Captain Sojin immediately knew they were too late to save the world. The planet's surface glowed with fires that could be seen from space. Massive Korthak ships, dark and twisted like dead insects, orbited the dying world in feeding formation. "Scanning the surface now," reported Lieutenant Yoonji from her station. "I'm detecting multiple Korthak hive clusters in the major cities. They've built some kind of processing facilities." "Processing for what?" Sojin asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Biomass conversion. They're literally eating the planet." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Every tree, every animal, every person on Velthara was being consumed and converted into more Korthak. "Any survivors?" Sojin asked quietly. "I'm picking up power signatures from underground facilities. Someone is still alive down there." Sojin felt a small measure of relief. They were not too late. "Not completely. Open a channel to the surface," she ordered. "This is Captain Sojin of the Iron Phoenix calling Velthara survivors. Please respond." The answer came immediately, but it was not what anyone expected. Instead of the grateful voice of someone being rescued, Hana sounded terrified. "Please stay away," she transmitted. "We know who you are. We know what you are. We cannot ask the monsters of Terra to fight other monsters on our behalf." The human crew exchanged confused looks. They had traveled across the galaxy to help these people, and now the aliens were afraid of them? Sojin tried to keep her voice calm and reassuring. "We're here to help you. We received your distress call and came as quickly as we could." "You are from the Deathworld," Hana replied. "Your people are known throughout the galaxy as violent and dangerous. We cannot trust you." "Then you'll die," Sojin said bluntly. "Because we're the only ones who came." There was a long silence from the planet's surface. Finally, Hana spoke again. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Sojin answered. "You asked for help. We're giving it to you. That is impossible. No species helps others without expecting something in return." Sojin looked around the bridge at her crew. These people had volunteered for a mission that might get them all killed, and they had done it for strangers they had never met. How could she explain that to someone who didn't understand? "Listen to me carefully," she said. "My people have a saying. When someone calls for help, you answer. It doesn't matter who they are or what they can give you, you answer because it's the right thing to do." "The right thing?" Hana sounded confused. "What does that mean?" "It means we help people because we can, not because we have to." Pilot Q-Sung looked up from his controls. "Captain, we have incoming Korthak fighters. 12 ships moving fast." "Battle stations," Sojin ordered. "All hands, prepare for combat." The Iron Phoenix was not the largest ship in the Earth Defense Corps, but it was one of the deadliest. Human ships were built for war, because humans had been fighting in space for over a century. Every system was designed for combat efficiency. The Korthak fighters approached in perfect formation, their dark hulls gleaming in the light of Velthara's sun. They moved like a swarm of insects, which was exactly what they were. "They're not taking evasive action," reported Tactical Officer Seong-ho. "They're coming straight at us." "They probably think we'll run away like everyone else," Sojin said grimly. "Show them they're wrong. Open fire." The Iron Phoenix's weapons lit up the darkness of space. Plasma cannons, railguns, and missile launchers all fired at once. The Maiwam, human ships targeting systems designed for fighting other humans, were far more advanced than anything the Korthak had faced before. 6 Korthak fighters died in the first volley. The remaining enemy ships scattered in confusion. They had never encountered a species that opened fire immediately without warning or negotiation. Most civilized races would have tried to communicate first. "They're regrouping," Seong-ho reported. "Coming around for another pass." "Let them come," Sojin said. "Target their engines. I want prisoners for interrogation." The second engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. The Korthak ships were fast and maneuverable, but their pilots had never fought an enemy that predicted their movements. Human combat doctrine was based on thousands of years of warfare against other humans, who were far more unpredictable than any hive mind. When the shooting stopped, 3 Korthak fighters were drifting dead in space. The rest had fled back to the planet. On the surface of Velthara, Hana watched the battle through her instruments in amazement. The humans had not only fought the Korthak, they had won, easily. The monsters that had destroyed her entire civilization had been beaten by a single human ship. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. The communication system activated again. "Velthara, this is Iron Phoenix. We've cleared the orbital space around your position. We're sending down a reconnaissance team to assess the situation." "You destroyed them," Hana said, unable to hide her shock. "The Korthak. You actually destroyed them." "Just a scouting force," Sojin replied. "The real fight is still coming. We need to know what we're dealing with down there." An hour later, Assault Team Leader Wu Jin led a squad of Marines through the ruined streets of Velthara. The city had once been beautiful, with tall white towers and graceful bridges connecting the buildings. Now it looked like the surface of hell. The Korthak had been busy. Everywhere the humans looked, they saw evidence of the aliens' feeding frenzy. Streets were covered with a thick organic slime that moved and pulsed like it was alive. Strange. Growth sprouted from the walls of buildings, and the air was filled with buzzing sounds that hurt to listen to. "This is disgusting," muttered Private Namjoon, one of Wu Jin's newer soldiers. "Stay focused," Wu Jin ordered. "We're here to find survivors and gather intelligence, not sightsee." Sniper Yoonji moved ahead of the group, her rifle ready and her eyes scanning every shadow. She had grown up hunting in the mountains of Korea, and her ability to spot danger was almost supernatural. "Movement ahead," she reported quietly. 3 buildings down, 2nd floor. "Looks like Korthak." Wu Jin raised his hand, and the squad stopped immediately. Every Marine crouched low and brought their weapons up. "How many?" Wu Jin asked. "Hard to tell. At least 6, maybe more. They seem to be feeding." Wu Jin made a series of hand signals, and his team spread out into attack formation. They moved through the ruined city like ghosts, making no sound on the slime-covered streets. The Korthak never saw them coming. The first alien died from Yoonji's sniper rifle. The bullet took its head clean off before it could make a sound. The second and third Korthak fell to precise fire from the assault team. The remaining 3 tried to run. They didn't make it far. "Area secure," Wu Jin reported. "We found what they were feeding on." The silence that followed told Sojin everything she needed to know. "Understood. Gather whatever intelligence you can and return to the ship. We need to plan our assault." Back in the underground bunker, Hana listened to the radio chatter between the human soldiers. They spoke in short, efficient phrases, coordinating their movements like a pack of hunters. There was no fear in their voices, no hesitation. They talked about killing the Korthak the way her people might discuss gardening. Captain So-jin, she transmitted. Your soldiers. They are not afraid of the Korthak. Should they be? So-jin asked. Every other species that has faced them has been terrified. The Korthak are perfect killers. They cannot be stopped. Perfect killers? So-jin's voice carried a note of amusement. They're just big bugs. We've been dealing with things like them for millions of years. Hana did not understand. How could these humans be so calm about facing an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations? What are you going to do? She asked. We're going to kill every Korthak on your planet, So-jin said. Simply, then we're going to help you rebuild. That's impossible. There are millions of them. Then it will take a while, So-jin replied. But we have nowhere else to be. For the first time since the Korthak had arrived, Hana felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. The humans were either completely insane or incredibly brave. Looking at the wreckage of her world and thinking about the monsters that had destroyed it, Hana decided there might not be much difference between the two. But they were here and they were willing to fight. Maybe monsters were exactly what her people needed. The attack began at dawn, when the Korthak were least active. Captain So-jin had studied the enemy for 12 hours, watching their patterns and looking for weaknesses. What she found surprised her. The Korthak were efficient killers, but they had never fought an enemy that fought back effectively. Every species they had conquered before used defensive tactics, trying to protect civilians and minimize casualties. The insects had adapted to that kind of warfare. Humans fought differently. Remember, So-jin told her assault teams over the radio, we're not here to be heroes. We're here to kill bugs, fast, dirty, and without mercy. These things don't surrender, so don't give them the chance. Sergeant Jin Woo led the first wave, dropping from orbit in armored pods that crashed through the roof of a Korthak hive complex. The aliens inside were feeding on captured Rilani civilians when the Marines landed. The slaughter that followed was swift and brutal. Contact ground floor, Jin Woo reported, as his rifle cut down 3 Korthak in as many seconds. Heavy resistance, but nothing we can't handle. Behind him, combat medic Mi Young moved through the building with her weapon ready. Her job was to save lives, but first she had to end them. A Korthak warrior leaped at her from a side room, its claws reaching for her throat. Mi Young's shotgun removed its head before it could complete the attack. Casualties, she called out as she moved to the next room. None so far, Jin Woo replied. These things are tough but slow. They're not used to fighting people who shoot first and ask questions later. The second wave hit the main Korthak command center in the city's heart. Explosives expert Do Hyun had spent hours planning his approach, studying the alien building and looking for structural weaknesses. He found them. Fire in the hole, he shouted as his charges detonated. The entire front wall of the building collapsed, crushing dozens of Korthak inside and exposing the interior to his assault team. Heavy weapons specialist Seong Ho charged through the gap, carrying a weapon that no civilized species would consider appropriate for urban warfare. The plasma cannon was designed to destroy tanks, not infantry, but humans had never been concerned with fighting fair. This is for eating people, he growled as he opened fire. The Korthak had never experienced anything like human fury. Their hive mind was built for efficiency and logic, not for understanding the rage of creatures who had evolved from predators. When they saw their nestmates being slaughtered, they did not feel fear or anger. They felt nothing at all. That was their mistake. Electronic warfare specialist Yujin sat in a captured building, her equipment spread across 3 tables. She had managed to tap into the Korthak communication network, and what she found was disturbing. Captain, she reported, the bugs are coordinating their response, but it's not working the way they expect. Explain, So-jin ordered from her command post. Their hive mind assumes all enemies will behave predictably. They're sending reinforcements to locations where they think we'll be, but we're not following their tactical models. Good. Keep monitoring their chatter. If you can disrupt their communications, do it. Yujin smiled grimly as she activated a virus program she had designed during the flight to Velthara. Already on it, Captain. Let's see how they like fighting blind. Across the city, Korthak warriors suddenly found themselves cut off from their hive mind. For creatures that had never operated independently, the experience was devastating. They wandered through the streets in confusion, making themselves easy targets for human sniper teams. Reconnaissance scout Hyun-soo moved through the ruins like a ghost, marking enemy positions and calling in strikes from orbit. He had grown, up in the slums of Seoul, where survival meant being faster and smarter than everyone else. Those skills served him well on the alien world. "Sniper nest, building 12, he whispered into his radio. 6 Korthak with energy weapons. "Copy that," came Yoonji's voice. "Target acquired. 6 shots, 6 dead aliens." "Building clear," Hyun-soo reported as he moved to his next position, but the Korthak were adapting. Their hive mind processed the new threat and began changing tactics. Instead of spreading out to hunt civilians, they concentrated their forces into massive swarms that moved through the city like living tsunamis. "We have a problem," Assault Team Leader Woo Jin reported from the front lines. "They're massing for a coordinated attack. Looks like several thousand of them." So Jin studied the tactical display on her command screen. The Korthak swarm was moving toward the underground bunkers where the Rilani survivors were hiding. If the aliens broke through, everyone would die. "All units fall back to defensive positions around the bunker entrance," she ordered. "We're making a stand." "Captain," came Jinwoo's voice over the radio, "there are too many of them. We can't hold this position with what we have." "Then we'll have to be creative," So-jin replied. "Do-hyun, how much explosive do you have left?" "Enough. To level 6 city blocks, if that's what you're asking." "It is. Set charges on the buildings around the bunker entrance. When I give the word, bring them down on top of the swarm." "That will bury us too," Do-hyun pointed out. "Not if we're in the bunkers with the civilians." The plan was insane, but it was also typically human. No other species would consider collapsing an entire city district to win a battle. The Korthak certainly didn't expect it. As the alien swarm approached, the human soldiers retreated into the underground complex. Hana watched them with confusion and growing fear. "You are giving up?" she asked Captain So-jin. "Not giving up," So-jin replied, checking her rifle one more time. "Getting ready for the real fight." The Korthak poured into the area around the bunker entrance like a black tide of death. Thousands of them, all focused on reaching the survivors hiding below ground. They had never faced an enemy that would retreat into a trap. Now, So-jin said quietly, the explosions could be heard from orbit. Do-hyun had used every gram of explosive material he had brought, plus several tons of improvised charges made from captured alien equipment. 6 city blocks collapsed simultaneously, burying the Korthak swarm under millions of tons of rubble. But some of the aliens survived, and they were angry. The final battle took place in the underground tunnels, where human advantages meant everything. The Korthak were designed for open warfare, not for fighting in confined spaces against an enemy that knew every inch of the battlefield. Mi-young found herself treating wounded Rilani civilians while fighting off Korthak infiltrators. Her medical training had taught her exactly where to place shots for maximum effectiveness, and she used that knowledge on anything that threatened her patients. "Stay down," she told a group of alien children, as her rifle took out another enemy. "Warrior." "This will be over soon." Jinwoo led the final assault through the tunnel system, hunting down the remaining Korthak with methodical efficiency. His Marines moved like they were born for this kind of fighting, which in a way they were. "Last nest cleared," he reported as the shooting finally stopped. "Area secure." The silence that followed was absolute. For the first time in days, there was no sound of gunfire, no buzz of Korthak wings, no screams of terror. Hana emerged from her communication center to find Captain So-jin waiting for her. The human woman was covered in dust and alien blood, but she was smiling. "It's over," So-jin said simply. "All of them?" Hana asked, hardly daring to believe it. "Every last bug," So-jin confirmed. "Your world is safe." Around them, Rilani survivors began to emerge from their hiding places. They stared at the human soldiers with a mixture of fear and gratitude, not sure which emotion was stronger. "I don't understand," Hana said to So-jin. "Why did you do this? What do you gain from saving us?" Jin looked around at the rescued aliens, then back at Hana. We gained the knowledge that when someone called for help, we answered. That's enough. The Korthak swarm that had terrorized the galaxy for decades was gone, destroyed by the monsters from a Deathworld that everyone feared. And for the first time in galactic history, the monsters were the heroes of the story. 3 weeks after the last Korthak died, Velthara was beginning to look like a living world again. Human engineering teams worked alongside Rilani survivors to clear the rubble and rebuild the most important structures. The air no longer smelled of death, and the organic slime that had covered everything was slowly being cleaned away. Hana stood on the roof of the partially rebuilt communication center, watching a group of human soldiers teach Rilani children how to play a game called soccer. The alien children were awkward at first, their long limbs not designed for kicking balls, but they laughed when they fell down. It was the first time she had heard children laugh since the attack began. Strange sight, isn't it? Captain Jin said, joining her on the roof. I expected your people to leave as soon as the fighting was over, Hana admitted. Most species would have collected whatever payment they wanted and departed. We don't work that way, Jin replied. You can't save someone and then abandon them. The job isn't finished until you're back on your feet. Below them, Engineering Officer Jae-un was explaining to a group of Rilani how to repair their power grid using human technology. The aliens listened carefully, asking questions and taking notes. Their city's infrastructure had been almost completely destroyed, but the humans seemed to have solutions for everything. Your people are very different from what we were taught, Hana observed. The stories said humans were violent and dangerous. We are violent and dangerous, Jin said matter-of-factly. But we're violent toward things that threaten people we care about, and we're dangerous to anyone who hurts innocents. Why do you care about us? We are strangers to you. Jin was quiet for a moment, watching the children play. My grandmother used to tell me a story, she said finally, about a man who saw a child drowning in a river. The man couldn't swim very well, and the river was fast and dangerous. Everyone told him not to go in because he would probably die too. What did he do? He jumped in anyway. He saved the child, but he almost drowned doing it. Jin looked at Hana. When people asked him why he risked his life, he said it was because someone was drowning and he could swim well enough to try. Hana thought about this. That man was human? All humans, Jin said with a slight smile. It's just how we're built. The conversation was interrupted by a communication alert. Diplomatic liaison Min Ho appeared on the roof, looking excited. Captain, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Word about what happened here is spreading fast. Jin frowned. What kind of messages? Congratulations mostly. Trade offers. A few requests for military assistance. Min Ho paused. And 3 marriage proposals. Marriage proposals? For the entire human species, apparently. The Zentari Federation wants to form a permanent alliance. They're offering their daughters in marriage to cement the deal. Jin shook her head in disbelief. Tell them we don't work that way either. But the real change was happening in the deeper parts of galactic society. Communication specialist Taemin, monitoring alien transmissions from Earth, was amazed by what he heard. The same species that had refused to help the Rilani were now talking about humans in completely different terms. Where once they spoke of the Deathworld monsters with fear, now they used words like protectors and guardians. Listen to this, Taemin told his supervisor, playing a recorded transmission from the Vorthak Empire. They're saying humans are the galaxy's new peacekeeping force. They want to hire us to patrol their border systems. Similar messages were coming from dozens of civilizations. The hegemony of Ash wanted human advisors to train their military. The Crystal Collective offered to share their advanced medical technology in exchange for protection. Even the Trade Federation, which had offered to buy Rilani survivors as slaves, now wanted to establish formal relations with Earth. But the most significant message came from an unexpected source. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Korthak Remnant Fleet, the transmission began. Taemin nearly fell out of his chair when he heard it. We acknowledge the defeat of our primary swarm at Velthara. We wish to negotiate terms of coexistence with the human species. The message was passed up the chain of command immediately. Within hours, it reached President Chen of the United Earth government. "They want to negotiate?" President Chen asked the assembled military leaders. "The species that never negotiates wants to talk to us?" "It appears so, Madam President," replied Admiral Park, head of Earth Defense Command. "Our analysis suggests the Korthak have never encountered an enemy they couldn't defeat through overwhelming force. The loss of an entire swarm has forced them to reconsider their tactics." "What do they want?" "Safe passage through human space, guaranteed non-interference in their operations outside our territory, and formal recognition of their remaining territorial claims." President Chen was quiet for a long moment. "And in return?" "They promise not to attack any world under human protection." "Worlds under human protection," the president repeated. "When did we become the galaxy's police force?" "The moment we answered a distress call that everyone else ignored," Admiral Park replied. Back on Velthara, the changes were even more dramatic. Ships from a dozen different civilizations had arrived in the system, all wanting to establish diplomatic relations with the humans and offer aid to the Rilani. Cultural exchange specialist Dongwu found himself overwhelmed by the number of aliens wanting to meet with human representatives. Species that had never spoken to each other before were gathering in the same room, united by their desire to understand the creatures from the Deathworld. "They're all afraid of being the next ones who need help," he explained to Captain Sojin. "Everyone realizes that if they face a crisis, humans might be the only ones willing to respond." The most significant development came when Hana made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I am resigning my position in the Rilani government," she told the assembled crowd of humans and aliens in the rebuilt Central Plaza. "I have accepted Captain Sojin's offer to join the crew of the Iron Phoenix as a cultural liaison." The crowd buzzed with excitement. It was the first time in galactic history that a member of a peaceful species had volunteered to serve on a human warship. "Why?" asked a reporter from the Galactic News Network. "Why would you leave your home to travel with humans?" Hana looked out at the mixed crowd of species, then at the human soldiers who had saved her world. "Because someone needs to help the galaxy understand what humans really are. They are not monsters, they are protectors, and the galaxy needs protectors." As the ceremony continued, communications specialist Yujin approached Captain Sojin with a data pad. "Captain, we're receiving another distress call. This one is from the Outer Rim, near the Magellan Cluster. A mining colony is under attack by raiders." Sojin looked at the pad, then at her assembled crew. "How far?" 6 days at maximum speed. Any other ships responding?" Yujin shook her head. "Just us, Captain." Sojin nodded and activated her communicator. "All hands prepare for departure. We have work to do." As the Iron Phoenix lifted off from Velthara's surface, Hana stood on the bridge watching her homeworld recede into the distance. She felt nervous about leaving everything she had ever known, but also excited about what lay ahead. "Having second thoughts?" Captain Sojin asked, joining her at the viewport. "No," Hana replied, "but I am curious about something. You humans help strangers who cannot repay you. You risk your lives for people you have never met. You fight monsters that everyone else is afraid of. Why?" Sojin was quiet for a moment, watching the stars ahead of them. "Because someone has to," she said finally. "And we can." In the weeks that followed, news of the Iron Phoenix's next mission spread across the galaxy. A human ship was racing to answer another distress call, just as they had done for the Rilani. It was becoming a pattern. Soon other human ships began following the Iron Phoenix's example. Captain Lee of the Indomitable answered a pirate attack near the core worlds. Commander Kim of the Thunderchild stopped a slave raid in the neutral zone. Each success brought more requests for help, more distress calls directed specifically at human vessels. Earth found itself at the center of a new galactic order, not as conquerors or traitors, but as the people you called when everything else had failed. The monsters from the Deathworld had become the galaxy's guardians, and they were changing the meaning of both words. As the Iron Phoenix jumped to hyperspace, heading toward their next mission, Taiman received another transmission from deep space. Another species in trouble, another call for help that no one else would answer. But humans would answer. They always did. It was just how they were built.